Welcome everyone to another episode of Awakening Dragons. I'm Katara Sky, your host, and I'm delighted to have a fellow shamanic sister with me here on today's podcast, Diana. I want to introduce Diana. She is an energy intuitive shamanic practitioner whose intention is to assist you in consciously creating the life you want to live by identifying the subconscious beliefs and patterns that are getting in the way. She combines the practical knowledge of the physical body, how it works with your inherent ability to really get to the bottom of the emotional and spiritual blockages that are often the direct cause of the majority of physical discomfort and suffering. Thank you, Diana, for being here. How are you today?
I am well, apart from some drama this morning, but it's just going with the flow. So very happy to be here, Katara.
Well, life wouldn't be complete without the dramas and all the teachings that it allows us, wouldn't you say?
Right. That's it. So you just have to learn to roll with the punches, and then there's always some sort of lesson in it. And then, yeah, you just kind of let it go and let it flow.
Well, that's it. And that's probably want to be one of the words of today's podcast, flow, and how we actually trust that. And I think, we were having a little side chat just before recording, and we were talking about flow and how important it is and how radical our life can actually change if we actually just go with that flow, but not like go with the flow, like the let the stream and the waters, take you, but like kind of really following, what's guiding. And I think one of the things, that I always marvel at, especially with Diana, is just how radically different our past life in this life was, right? So Diana was or is corporate lawyer before. And I used to be, I'm not anymore. Well, I still am, but whatever. A chartered accountant, so like really corporate, and moving into being healer, light worker, transformative coach, and how different it is. So tell us just a little bit about that transformation and what did you feel when that part of you was changing, emerging to this new side of you? Like what happened? When did you realize that needed that shift?
So they're all good questions. So where do I start? I think let's go back to when I was in my career as a lawyer, and I'd been in, I was a lawyer for about 8 years at that time, and I noticed that I was getting really angry, really angry. I just was not happy with being in the law at all. My workplace was toxic. But I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to do. There was something in me which was pretty much going, this isn't for you, Diana. You need to start really looking at your life and figuring out what it is that you want, or what actually makes you feel happy, what makes you feel lit up, what's your purpose, sort of thing. And so that took me on a journey of self-discovery. I tried many different healing modalities like chiropractor, kinesiology, and then massage, and then biodynamic cranial sacral therapy. And through every session, I learned much more about myself. And I noticed that my anger reduced, and I was actually a lot easier. It was easier for me to deal with things at work when I guess the underlying cause of that anger was slowly being chipped away at. So then it led me to this point in a session of biodynamic craniosacral therapy with my massage therapist, and he took me really, really deep. And I remember it was just so still, and I was just lying there, and it was really quiet. And then all of a sudden, that aha moment came in, which was, you love this personal development, this sort of
Yes.
alternative sort of stuff. So do it, just do it, do it, do it. And I thought, look, what do I have to lose in a way? I still had, my full-time job. I could study. I was going to do massage first, so study that part-time outside of office hours. So, I had the time to be able to do that. So I made the decision, and I enrolled in the course. And then because I knew at that point I was probably going to leave the law, I actually went home to my parents' place and threw out all of my law books, and
Mm.
I went to sleep. And the next day I woke up and all of this energy was pulsating out of my hands and arms, and I couldn't actually lift them off the bed. And so that took me on another journey trying to figure out what that was. And then just led to different steps that has eventually gotten me to where I am now. But for me, that feeling, it was such a pull towards it. The pull was so strong that it defied logic. As the lawyer, you're going, how does this work? This makes zero sense. How are you going to make money out of doing this sort of work? But that pull from the heart was just trust it, just go. And when I kind of just leaned into it, everything just started opening up, and I haven't looked back ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. And so much of what you're saying, almost it's like we're living lives in parallel, because it's obviously not the same story, but it's similar. Your emotion that you felt was anger. For me, it was just lack of fulfillment. It was just this emptiness, and this knowing that, gosh, there must be more. And in that beginning journey of the self-development, first of all, it's identifying, like, do you want to stay there, right? Because some people want to stay with their anger. They want to stay with their whatever it is, insert emotion. Yeah. So I think both of us realized, okay, so we don't want to stay there. And then I had, the plethora of modalities. So I started with yoga, meditation, hypnotherapy, and a lot of my world changed actually from the shamanism and initiation into this world, and really connecting with spirit. And I think you're right. Like, there just is this logic that goes out the window. I mean, I think I threw the baby out with the bathwater in the beginning of, like, okay, I don't need that. But now I feel like I'm integrating it back, because actually we need that balance of leading with the two horses, the head and the heart together. And it's being able to trust the intuition, what I kind of say is the more feminine part, but intuition that everyone has, but also balancing it with masculine traits, like taking action, right? Like, a lot of healers, how many people might be stuck on not being able to make that change in life and getting stuck there. So yes. I think that this has been, obviously your, story of credibility, of your path of transformation. And I think that you help, lots of people to transform. So I'm just curious, like, how do you define transformation? Like, so many people promise transformation. It's an industry. Is it the same to you when we say healing? What's transformation to you? Like, what's the components of it? What does that look and feel like for you?
It's a really good question, Kat. And when you ask that, the first, only one word comes into my mind to describe it, and that's just change. And it's change on whatever level you want to talk about the change, whether it's changing a belief or a mental pattern that you have, changing a particular way that you're doing something at the moment. It's just change, however big or small it is. To me, that's a transformation, because you're taking one thing and doing something different.
Yeah.
That's, I think I can summarize it.
But I guess we can also change for the worse, though. Like, what about the direction of change?
Well, I mean, the word transformation kind of encompasses both, right? You can either change for the better or for the worst. But I think in any event, my feeling around that is you can only change for the better. Because even if you make a change that seems to be worse off, there's a lesson in that.
Totally.
And so whatever change you make, and I'm going to be so cliche here, but it's the right change that you make in that particular moment for you, given the information that you have.
Yeah.
And just knowing that, like, it's a constant process. It's not you're just going to change or transform on one thing and that's it. No, we're constantly pushed to change, transform.
And I think that's one thing that I guess everyone on their personal transformation, spiritual journey, whatever you want to call your journey, right? Like, we have to keep bearing in mind, I don't think there's an end point to transformation. Like it's a continuous expansion, a continuous elevation, if that's the direction you want to go. But even if you are, going downwards, it's a spiral. So I think, whatever program, whatever session, whatever immersion in your life you're in, to bear in mind that transformation has phases probably, and that it's continuous. I mean, I like to say, look, I'm in the business of transformation, but helping people to really just come home to their true self. And I know that sounds kind of fluffy, but it's like coming into alignment. I know that's one of the key words that we also, tuned into just before as well, right? Flow, but alignment, like what's truth for us and how we express that authentically, because you're a healer, I'm a healer, but I probably think we do it a little bit differently, right? Like you speak, I speak, we speak differently. You connect to guides, I connect to guides, but we have different guides. So I think it's another empowering thing to really reassure everyone in our transformation journey. Like we're all, as long as we're headed towards our intention of ascension and evolution and all of those things, to trust our path and our guidance to whatever we're wanting to express and bring into reality. So that's what I wanted to add to that. But what about on the aspect of business? Like that's one thing I think, we've recently talked a lot about as well, doing business as a healer, as a light worker. How does following our flow impact how we do business as a healer, as a light worker?
How does it impact? I think when we follow our flow and we make decisions which are in alignment with ourselves, and we can go into a little bit more in terms of what alignment means for someone, then you'll actually be able to see that effect within the business, and whether it's the effect of successfully attracting clients, or money coming in, or having people a lot of audience engagements, and even creating service or products which really resonate and meet people's needs. It actually takes less thought than you think. So, we're coming from this society, being in corporate, and, even the way that we've been taught to really be in our minds, in terms of we have to logically analyze everything and make sure that all the I's are dotted and all the T's are crossed and all that sort of stuff before we actually do something, right? Because underlying all that's probably a fear of failure, but we'll put that to the side. So when you're actually in alignment and authentic with who you are, and when you're making decisions based on that, it's actually effortless in terms of how your business is flowing and running. Obviously, as you were referring to before, we do need to, step into that brain of ours where it's the action, because you can have all of these ideas in your head, but unless you actually do something in order to bring it into the world, whether it's a website, socials, marketing, all that sort of stuff, then it's a great idea, but there's no physical substance behind it. So you need to at least still be able to do those action steps. But instead of, for example, in our case as a healer, because we understand everything's energy, instead of chasing for clients, instead of really putting out this desperate energy of, oh my goodness, I want people to sign up to my course because I really need this sort of stuff. If you trust that there's a reason why I got this idea, there's a reason why, I felt such a pull, or feel that it's so in alignment with me that I have to put this out there, then trust it and let the universe do the rest of that for you, in terms of bringing in the clients that are resonant with your offerings. But that in and of itself still requires us to constantly be in alignment with ourselves, constantly understand what our underlying fears and insecurities are, and to be able to work through that, to be in this flow, alignment, expansive state in order to receive what's always out there for us.
Yeah.
But a lot of our subconscious, beliefs and stuff are stopping us from actually receiving.
Yeah. And I think, having a business while when you're aware that you're on a spiritual path as well, itself is such a healing and activation. And there's so much stuff going on all the time, right? Like everything you're saying about, why did that idea come, and all the, I guess, limiting beliefs and energies that arise when you actually then go and put something out there, right? Like launching a podcast. What if no one listens? Putting a course out there. What if no one signs up? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you think, though, that timing of your manifestation, right? Like, even if I'm feeling that heartfelt call of that's the program, that's the name of it, this is what I'm supposed to do, how much do you think that divine timing or just linear time has to do with bringing things into reality, though?
A lot. I feel that it has a lot to do with it, especially when what you're kind of relying on in order to, create the success or whatever it is that you're after. That's based on the free will of other people as well, right? And so, for example, if you're looking for clients, you're kind of waiting for them to be at the stage where they're ready and resonant with your offering to be able to take it up, for example. Or you might be waiting for like some sort of, like, whether it's a certain venue that needed to pop up so that you can hold the energy of what event it is that you want to create, for example. That was like the same thing for me in terms of looking for a clinic space to work out of. It actually took a while because I actually had to wait for that clinic space to be found and set up, and then
Exactly.
it was ready to go, sort of thing, right? So timing does play quite a bit into it. But again, I think sometimes the timing can be a bit longer than what we expect, but also sometimes the timing is very quick. So for example, like when you're in that perfect time and place, and generally you will feel when it is right to do so. Well, for me anyway, because my main sense is feeling, things happen. So, I launched a business offering at the beginning of July. And then within the first 2 weeks, I already got 3 paying clients, and one was pretty big.
Yeah.
And that was just like, I didn't do much around it.
Yeah, and sometimes it's maybe I felt this. I don't know if you also feel that way, but sometimes when you launch something, it's because you needed to help that 1, 2, 3 people. And I think actually learn from that as well, to say, look, success doesn't translate into, $100,000 launch. So if you're truly, in service work, sometimes it's really reflecting on, look, you actually followed that calling, you were here to meet a certain need, and you actually did it. And and not judging yourself for that success because it didn't look like what somebody else's launch looked like.
Exactly. And so that's when what you come back to is like, don't compare yourself to other people in terms of what they have and what the perceived like interpretation of the word success or whatever is for them, right? Because it's not necessarily for you. That's why you're incarnated here. That's why you're different. And you've got all these different things there, right? And like perhaps if we feel that sort of level of insecurity that, oh, but success to me means like, $10,000 earned in a month or something like that, I would suggest perhaps looking at that limitation of the definition that you're placing on yourself and expanding your perspective to go, well, what does success really look like? So for example, Kat, you were saying, if you just launch something and only like one person got it and then that was it. In my eyes, I would still view that as success, because you think of the ripple effect.
100%. That's exactly what I was thinking. Yes.
And it's just not one person, but that one person, who knows what they're doing with the work that you've put out, right? It happens in so many realms, like not just the seen, not just this physical reality, but like on an unseen realm. You have no idea of the impact that you make by just going through the action point on that tiny idea.
Yeah, totally. And I think everything has a time and space, right? Like that little puzzle piece of why you did that program, whatever, 3 years ago. And, I see that with a few things, even with people I meet, or why I had my corporate life. It comes back like a boomerang. It's like, okay, I work with corporate people. And
Exactly.
you can speak a different language.
That's right.
Course, an idea that I pretty much had, let's say 80% of the framework, but then I ditched it because I wasn't fully complete. And then now I'm like, oh, it's version 2 and it's big, better or whatever. But actually it's not better. It's more aligned and there's more authenticity. And I would feel like there's more fullness of it. And then jumping back to, what I said earlier about, well, transformation is continuous, right? So you're putting out a program now and you're going to have a different offering in 6 months' time and 1 year's time. So I think another thing to remember is because we're always evolving and changing, let's just say that that's, your goal and your thing, then what we put out there is also going to change in line with that as well.
Correct. Exactly. And it's okay to put something out there and take it away when it's no longer resonant with you.
I've done that
all the time.
I invest like thousands. I mean, I tell this story just because sometimes I feel so resentful, but like I put this whole funnel together. Like, this is like 3 years ago now. It was my first entry into online courses. I'm like, okay, online's the way to go. And I did this whole funnel and this whole website and yada, yada, yada. And I probably put like $5,000-6,000, which isn't like heaps, but like I wasn't successful yet in making, 100 grand launches. And then I hated it. The language wasn't in alignment with me. I didn't feel like it flowed. I actually wasn't really in alignment with who was creating it. And there was just so many learning points. And even though I still had a bit of resentment and obviously lost money and lost energy, it taught me so much about the importance of who you collaborate with, and allowing that if you're energetic, if you're in tune, if you're in the flow, sometimes the download or the information available to what you're offering is just doesn't come all at once. It comes in drips and drabs, and then you're like, that piece from way over there, I've got to pull it in, right? Like you must feel that way as well.
Yep.
And then manifestation, I guess it's a good time to talk about that. We said linear timing matters. So I love these courses I see everywhere, the power of manifestation, your dreams in 7 days, or whatever it is. And I think people need to be reminded that linear time does matter. And, if it is for your highest good, it's going to come your way, but you just got to do the shadow work. You got to do and identify, as you said in your, in the bio, as I introduced you, it's like really getting to the bottom of the stuff that's in the way when we hold our vision there. Right. And we don't know what's in the way. Like we think we know consciously, but then you put that to the side and you let, the guides or spirit come through. Like how many of your clients, Diana, have been shocked at just what comes through for them when they identify their blockages?
They all are, because a lot of them, the big one is you don't love yourself. And the automatic response I get back is, yes, I do. I do all these sorts of things. I'm going, no, that's not how you actually love yourself. And then, you take them through connecting with your inner child, for example. And then they go, oh, right. So loving myself isn't necessarily going out and getting massages every day.
And getting a pedicure.
Getting a pedicure. It's like, no, that's not it. Loving yourself is saying no to doing something that you don't want to do, instead of saying yes out of obligation, So it's almost like a rephrasing of what people view as certain things, and a redefinition for them to really understand, wow, okay, that's actually what's stopping me. Another one, for example, is fear of success. So you've got some entrepreneurs who really want to launch, and they've got amazing business offerings and all that sort of stuff. But then it's, when I'm tuning into it, I'm going, oh man, you got a real fear of success here, because if you get successful, there's a belief that's then you got to put so much energy into work, and it's all nurturing the work and all that sort of stuff. Wow, where's that belief coming from? Is it coming from your parents? Is it coming from your ancestors or a past life sort of thing?
Yeah.
People realize that until, I guess, they're at a stage or they're with someone who can actually identify that for them.
Yeah. And being ready to receive that information. Like these can be patterns. Like we're just talking about a few patterns here, a few, core self-esteem things. But you must be in that pattern and still continue to choose in that pattern for, just out of comfort, maybe out of habit, and not be
Yes.
able to get out of it. So you were saying something about loving yourself. So I had a big aha moment after my last relationship. It was like 6 years, beautiful man, and it was loving and all those things. But at the end of it, if I could conclude it in one sentence, I don't think he's going to listen to this podcast. It would be that I didn't love myself enough because I kept placing him and his needs before mine. And, now in hindsight, I go back and I analyze and dissect, and I'm like, I didn't love myself enough. I didn't feel enough. I didn't feel safe to be me. I didn't feel safe to be powerful, right? Because I was working in corporate at that time. I made good money. I had a great position. I could hold my own. And in reflection, it was actually like he just didn't, he wasn't actually an equal in some ways, that he didn't embrace that. And so it really triggered all my feelings of, I'm the problem. I'm not cool enough. I'm not whatever enough. And it came to, again, that conclusion that I just didn't love myself and all the things that meant, to be me. So that was a big healing journey, and, had its, it's like you do one healing and then you have to like do the next layer and the next layer of all the self-love. And, you mentioned inner child healing, like that's, pretty mainstream now. But you could do that for the rest of your life and be like, great, if that's the only thing you learn how to do, right? Because how many layers can we go deep with inner child and still get revelations?
Lots. I'm still going with mine. I'm still going.
Exactly. And creating our life, like all of this, I guess, to help us to know how we actually create and be purposeful. So I guess by the time that people find you and find me, they probably have an intention. But do you think that some people just don't realize that they don't really have a purpose, or they're just kind of going through the grind and being the hamster in the wheel?
100%. You can see that. I mean, it exists in today's society right now. When I used to live in Sydney, having, made that change, I would walk through the CBD and I would just see people and I'm going, wow, you're so unhappy, but you're not doing anything about it. Like, you're just going to stick to the hamster wheel. You're just going to keep going at your corporate job and blah, 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 as opposed to, like, actually making a choice to be happy and to do something that you really want to do. Like, it's really funny because I keep getting taken back to when I was working in a law firm, and my partner, as in my legal partner at the time, I could tell he hated the job. He was like, but he needed to do it because, kids are in very expensive private schools and, they have a certain lifestyle that they wanted to live and all that sort of thing. And he just kept grinding and grinding away. And actually, eventually I just was like, I think our relationship soured in a way because I just wanted to step up and live a bit closer in alignment with who I really was and my beliefs, do what I wanted to do. And I could just see that he wasn't helping himself. And I was just like, man, you just keep going on that path. Like, you
Did
do
he want
you.
help? Like, did you even have those kind of enlightening conversations where he realized he was in the hamster wheel? Like, so many people are just in it.
Yeah, it was so weird because on one level I knew that he knew that he didn't want to be like, in that job. And I also knew that, like, he was the one that actually got me onto my mentor at the time, who was doing biodynamic psychotherapy, for example. So he knew that certain stresses and all that sort of stuff in your life can apply, like, come into your physical reality and all that sort of stuff. But I think he felt caged in by the perceived limitations, which was I needed to work hard, earn lots of money so I can feed my family and have my family thrive.
Yeah.
as opposed to, well, maybe if you took your kids out of that really super expensive private school and put them into, you know, a cheaper school or something, that might actually take a little bit of the heat off you. So then you wouldn't feel like you always had to go out and get clients and matters in and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, it was a good example of like being locked in that hamster wheel and making that, I guess, choice to continue to stay in that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the fear of stepping outside of that was just way too much. You know how they say something about you're not going to make a change until the pain
Oh,
becomes
yeah.
like memory or something like that. Like it's
Yeah.
the same sort of thing.
Yeah. And, you know, like pain varies from person to person. Like for you might have been just, hey, I just don't want to be in anger all the time. For me, that
Yep.
of fulfillment and seeing what my day to day looked like was just certainly not the life that I imagined, that being at my peak, right? So I used to be chief financial officer for an airline and then went back to this other job and got integrated back. And I'm like, this is not the life that I think that I want. It might be someone else's dream. And I guess the thing, especially where I was living at the time, I was living in Abu Dhabi, which is near Dubai and the United Arab Emirates. And you can really have a lot of material and superficial success. You can make the big dollars, drive the nice car. I was on holiday every week. I traveled to like 60 something countries in the time span that I lived in the Middle East. You know, everybody thought it was successful. My parents almost had a heart attack, horror, when I told them that I was leaving my corporate job. And that links nicely to, you know, what you also said. It's about living up to other people's expectations, other people's perceptions and paradigms of what it means to be successful, what it means to, you know, look well, I don't know, in society, have private school kids. Like, hey, by the way, I'm a public school kid and I think I did all right. You know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
it's that choice. And I think that everyone, you know, obviously is provided many opportunities to make that choice again and again. Do you want to stay where you are? Do you want to change? Right.
Yep.
First point. Second is like, and if you want to change, where is it that you desire to be? Like, what is your vision? Right. If people don't have intention, or I know the guides will, you know, direct if they're in session or in the container, but it's like, dream big, you know, 10x, 100x.
Exactly.
Like, what do you actually want? And then everything that's in the way is probably going to show up. And that's going to take some time to realize. Okay, it's not going to be instant manifestation for, you know, every little thing. But that's how we can begin to move beyond what we start consciously identifying as our limitations and then realizing what we don't know. So I think you're feeling quite strongly about this topic as well recently, how to consciously create and move beyond our limitations. So what's been going on the last few months for you to focus so much on this?
So I am a mother of a 3-year-old, very strong-willed boy, and it was earlier this year. Okay, so let's just go back a little bit. So for quite a long time, he had this particular behavior that he was hitting younger children. He'd just target the younger kids. It was always the younger kids. Older kids, fine. Younger kids, no. I tried everything. And then I ended up kind of signing up to this course on parenting, which then began to show that he was actually mirroring my subconscious beliefs that I wasn't aware of. And then as I began to work on those subconscious beliefs, I actually began to see that like my external circumstances were changing. I'd actually be handling stress so much better than before. For example, like I'm a clean freak kind of thing. And if he, you know, he had his toys and crumbs all over the floor and stuff, and I would stress myself out by constantly going and picking it all up and cleaning. But when I identified what that subconscious belief was, all of a sudden I didn't care anymore. because like it was almost like this thing which was just like, do you really want to focus all your energy on doing something like that when you know that he's just going to come back and do it again anyway?
Yeah.
Or would you rather, like, you know, use that time and energy to be more present with him or do something that you like to do? What do you want to do? And so then I started to make those conscious choices. And
Yeah.
then things in the external world just started to change. And then I started, like, you know, we did some Qigong earlier this year where you were teaching us about, like, you know, drawing in certain frequencies that we wanted to have in our lives. And for you, the teaching was, when we're drawing this frequency in, start to notice what's happening in your life. And I started noticing that. And then doing this course with my son, I started, like, it really started to, like, you know, be very obvious that, holy crap, if I really just had an intention for the day, just summarize it in one word, what I wanted, then it would start coming on. And then I started to do that for growth of my business, you know, for earning money and my house build and everything. And then I just felt there was momentum which was coming up with it. And at one point, I remember telling my friend, I feel like I'm on the brink of like a creative burst of ideas and energy coming in. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it's about to happen. And then literally a month or so ago, every single day, I was just constantly getting ideas coming in, bang, 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 which led to that business offering, which I then launched within 2 or 3 weeks of it actually coming in.
Yeah.
And I'm just, the more that I do it, the more I just see, you know, what other limitations I'm placing on my life and making that conscious choice to know, let it go. Because I don't want to be like that. I actually want to be like this. So I'm going to, like, you know, consciously move to be like that sort of thing.
And
So
that
that's what's been
level of
happening.
self-awareness is just critical. You know, I guess
Yes.
so much of anyone's, you know, inner work is the ability for us to continue developing, cultivating, nurturing self-awareness or just consciousness, right? Like if you become conscious of something, and then it's choosing whether you're going to make a change about it. You know,
And
my,
it's,
go ahead.
yeah, I would go further to say that it's self-awareness with love.
Mm,
So when you find or can identify certain behaviors and beliefs and patterns that you have which aren't working for you, don't berate yourself for it. You know, and again, we're kind of going a little bit into inner child stuff here, but it's more
yeah.
of, okay, I can kind of see that pattern playing out. So why don't we just let's just play a little bit. What happens if we just changed one tiny little thing?
Yeah.
And so you kind of change it from this fear, like this energy, I guess, of the self-awareness and then wanting to criticize yourself because you behave like that, because the mind will be like, you know, yeah, that thing's just not working for you, but you have no idea how to actually make a change. And there's all this self-criticism, just kind of going, no, okay, I can see it. So now what do I want to do?
Mm, yeah. Well, stepping back to get a bit of perspective, you know, my qigong master, he says something that I remember and I say often, which is you choose your rate of transformation. You choose your rate of transformation. And I mean, certainly in the last 4 years, I've like deep dived, you know, into my immersion. Like I think my own awakening, my own development is because I spent heaps of time, thousands of hours on it, because, you know, for me, it was like, right, let's get to that. And that's part of personality. That's part of my divine timing. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you know, like you can be soft and gentle, you know, with your processes, or you can go deep and you can have a facilitator and help you out. And I think that's probably another thing to comment as well. And I wonder if you agree that even though we can be brilliant and really skilled in our own self-awareness, that sometimes we just need someone to help us out a little, you know, and whether you call that a facilitator, a healer, a mentor, it's like, you know, you can't see all the blind spots. You cannot have 360 on everything and do it all. Would you agree to that? I see you nodding your head.
100%. Yeah. And there's this part of letting go of the belief that you have to do everything yourself,
Mm.
and letting go of that belief that it's like you're powerless if you're asking for help, you're weak if you ask for help, sort of thing, right? So, like, can you kind of see how, like, when we talk about these sorts of things, there's always like an underlying sort of subconscious belief that goes with that. And so, yeah, for me, it was just really about like, just there, I've got certain people that I reach out to when I get stuck in the same pattern. I'm like, far out, it's the same pattern. What am I going to do about it? Because I can't see.
Yes.
Then I reach out to them, and then they'll drop the gem, and then I'll be like, oh my goodness, yes, that's
Mm.
right. Because for me, I just feel it in the body. As soon as that truth bomb drops, I personally get goosebumps, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
thank you for shining the light on that.
Yeah.
Now I know what I need to do to shift it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just need those people to just give you that little prod.
And it's just a little prod, right? Some of them are little prods that just push you in the right direction. Have you thought about this?
Yes.
Have you
Yeah.
looked at it this way? Right?
But then there's also the need for you to be open and receptive to hear that.
Yes.
So, you know, I will be the first person to put up my hand and say, like, for quite a lot of my life, I was very resistant to being told things.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's only been in this last year or so of expansion and growth that when someone tells me something that I don't necessarily want to hear, I'm actually okay with taking it. Like, I'll just sit with it. I'm going, you know what? You're right. I'm going to explore that a little bit more. Whereas
Yeah.
before, I'd be like, no, because I'm perfect. I can't do anything wrong, which comes down to that fear of failure.
Mm. Well, I certainly do not think that I can't be. I welcome, criticism or constructive criticism, whatever you call it. But I think one
Yep.
thing that I had going for me as a really long-standing pattern is don't tell me what to do. Like, especially it's like you should do it this way, and like it's
Yes.
really dogmatic. I just hate it. And
Yep.
I think I was really conscious of, you know what, I think it's just the rejection of authoritarian or dogmatic or just that really, I'm going to call it distorted masculine, even, right? Because you can still have support, structure, groundedness, solidity, and those masculine traits, but not be like, hammering it in a violent way. So I must have
Yes.
experienced lots of childhood trauma in response to that kind of method. So it was a long journey. It's been a long journey to really unravel, all of that distortion and how to be receptive to being told what to do, but I still mean it lightly in a way of being receptive, being able to be open. And I think that probably ties really strongly though back to earlier what we said about, trusting ourselves and trusting our kind of gut and flow. So I think the only thing we, assume in this conversation, but we haven't actually talked about is like, what about trusting our higher self and actually trusting what our guides say? Because I'm sure that as it is for me, and for you, that our decisions and our offerings, a lot of it is just guided, right, by our higher selves and spirit. So let's just talk a little bit about that. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean to you to say that everything is guided and that's how we know that we're in flow and that we're following that alignment?
I almost think, like, without the guidance that we receive from spirit, it's still up to us to discern whether or not it's right for us. So, I mean, I will get so many ideas coming in from spirit, it's not funny.
Hmm.
But then there's this part of me that still, will, I guess, discern what parts of that I want to take and what I don't want to take.
Hmm.
So I think it's like there's an importance of, like, understanding. We'll talk about spirit guides and I'll talk about higher self later. With spirit guides, there's we need discernment in relation to them. I'm not too sure how many teachers actually teach discernment of spirit guides, because we just kind of assume, oh, I'm just chatting to Archangel Michael, or blah blah blah, as opposed to well, do you actually know what they are? Like, do you know exactly what they are? Like, do you actually know that they are actually saying who they are? sort of thing. So there's a little bit of the discernment of that, and then also knowing that we will have spirit guides who come in and out of our lives. And so kind of understanding their agenda sort of thing. But I've gotten to the point now, and that's just through work and constant practice of the discernment, where I know when I call upon my team, bang, like, you know, they're going to be the ones that are in my fullest and highest alignment. And sometimes it's literally having the intention of, I'm only going to work with spirit who is in my fullest and highest alignment for this particular lifetime, sort of thing. So that's that. And in terms of higher self, it's a constant exercise to connect back within. And, you know, you have to use your own intuition in terms of figuring out whether what you're connecting with is really your higher self or not. I know I connect with my higher self. I have this talk with my higher self. And the messages that come through, and I guess it's similar to spirit guides that are in alignment, is it's very matter of fact, very loving, but very matter of fact. And I can't actually debate what is coming through, because I just know in my bones it's truth.
Yeah.
So that's when I know, okay, I'm chatting to my higher self here, because every single thing that's coming in, I feel it in my bones as truth, or I just know it as truth.
Yeah, but you've cultivated that sense, right? Like, and that's, I think maybe we said something earlier about knowing or sensing something, right? So I'm the same. I just know. If you tell me something, I'll just be like, yep, that's good, or nah, that's not for me. And you know, everyone has this innate ability. Okay, everyone's senses may be stronger in other things, but I think it's really important to know your sense and know how we communicate with our higher self, or whatever you want to call it. And know how we communicate with our guides, right? Like, so, you know, we did share the same training in shamanic school. And I remember seeing the, you know, different ways that some were seeing, you know, are super visual. And I remember our teacher, he said something that I also, you know, remember very well. He says, Kat, why do you need to see when you just know? That's even faster than seeing. You just know it. And I'm like, fair enough. Fair enough. So that was really powerful as well. And that probably brought up that subconscious thing of comparison, you know, but they can see, and it's so cool, and all the descriptions and everything. And I guess it's also a teaching that, you know, when you're in group containers, you know, online courses, sacred circles, whatever it is, or real life, right? We're working with colleagues, we're interacting with people all the time. We're going to have opportunities for comparison, but see them as reflections, or as you say, as mirrors of what our subconscious is actually judging about ourselves. That knowing is inferior, you know, that we think we're jealous of someone else's clairvoyance. So I'm getting better. I'd still like to see. I don't see that much. Yeah.
I'm not the biggest seer. So, you know, my intuitive abilities are the feeling and the knowing much more. And it's funny because you'll have the sight, but the sight comes through the knowing, if that actually makes sense. It's like, I just know there's, like, you know, a bunch of guards around here right now, and they're doing this and this. If you were to tell me, do I see it? No, but I just know they're there, and I just know they're doing it.
Yes, exactly. I think it's really powerful. I mean, I've definitely come to rely on it. And in fact, I think there's so much information that, you know, the English language, or whatever language you use, is just quite limiting, because the amount of information in one visual, in one feeling, you have to be very eloquent and articulate and, I don't know, like colorful if you want to be, to describe. So, you know, these days I'm really into exploring my own sound transmissions, or harmonic energies, whatever you want to call it, because there's so much information that's jam-packed in one single sound that comes through. I know that you also do some toning or sounds, that it's like, it's beyond needing to use words. But again, you need to cultivate awareness. right? Like you mentioned, I teach Qigong, which I do for light workers. And it's so important, the different subtle bodies that we have, and to be aware of energy. If you don't know the language, if you don't know that behind you is this door, it's the same with energy. If I don't know that this layer is there, how can I ever perceive it? So I think cultivating all of these tools, techniques, and really understanding how it is to fall back into our own alignment. And alignment's going to feel differently for you as it is for me. Maybe you get full body goosebumps and full body yes to do something. So I've never been good at reading, people's landing pages and hearing people's pitches. If I feel the knowing, it's like I need to work with that person, I need to reach out to that. But you need time to get there, right? Like we probably weren't like that 20 years ago, 15 years ago. I don't know how long you've been doing this. So yeah, so tell us about this July offering that you have. So what are you actually helping people with? Oh my God.
Okay, so this
I probably already availed of it, haven't I? I've probably been one of your picks. Yes.
Yes. So, before this particular service offering, I was really focused on just working on people individually and with stuff going on with them. And so then all of a sudden, I was really going down this track of everything's energy. Relook at what your definition of is in terms of what you see and what is energy in a way. And then it fell into my mind, and it's just like you can already work with energy of a person. And I was like, yes. And then they're like, you can do exactly the same with a business. And I was like, what? So this service offering is pretty much like doing a business energy clearing and alignment, more focused on the solo entrepreneurs or the smaller businesses, to help you remove subconscious beliefs that you might have, which are stopping you from achieving your dream. But in addition, helping to raise and align the actual energy of the business overall to meet your intention. So what happens is you've got, the energy, you've got your business, you kind of know what the business is about and all that sort of stuff. But so many things affect that energy. So it can be the devices that you're using. It can be how you write things. It can be the photos that you use. It can be your logo. It can be your clients. It can be your staff members or people that you're working with. And what I've also seen is it can even be affected by people who view you as competition. And so with this service offering, I'm just pretty much going through with the guides and clearing out everything connected to the business, including your financial accounts, the devices and hardware and everything that you use for it, your products, your services, all that sort of thing, and realigning it back to what your original intention is for it. It's the biggest thing that I've seen so far, coming from the ones that I've done, is when I do this, especially for businesses that are kind of like just one owner or two, there's a lot of inner child work that has to happen as well. Yeah. But this is really, really interesting. But that's what comes up in the business energy clearing.
Yeah, perfect. And I think I'm fully in agreement that we can look at energy in this way. So in a similar but not quite the same, I help a few of my corporate clients. They do business deals and things. And so I don't tune into the people, but it's like, does that business deal feel good? Does that partnership, what are the risks there? And it's like, it's a little bit like cold reading, because actually I don't know who's involved. I just say, tell me the names, and I just feel into it. But it's true, everything is energy. And I think that's a great way to summarize. If you learn how to perceive, to read, to articulate, to master your energies, like you can completely transform your life in the way that you want. So yes, I have availed of Diana's services in this business energy clearing. And again, referring back to time, right? It takes time sometimes for things to happen. And so I will reflect, and even share now. So we were doing the clearing of my business, and I have noticed that in the last few weeks, it's just, for me, it's allowing more the clarity of what my particular program, the one that I'm launching in September, which I'll share about, allowing clarity to come through, but that clarity and to come from a place that's more aligned, right? We keep saying that word, but like really from that playful place of what really lights me up, to share with people. And that's what you want to put out there. Sometimes finding the right words, may be tricky and all, but if you've locked into that radiance and that thing that, is pure and joyful and, full of life, I think it's just much easier. So I think that's one of the most obvious things that's happened, since the clearing that Diana did, which maybe, I'm not even sure, maybe a couple of weeks ago, but probably still more to come, like as you said, I've done that before. It's just clearing the energy around even your websites and to who's looking at this, because there's people throwing shade all the time. So if you are serious about, your personal work, and if you're a soulpreneur and, listening to this, I think it's really understanding that everything is energy and that sometimes we need a little bit of help to get there. And then you have people like Diana to help you along. So yes, I will invite Diana to be my guest teacher. Let's see. I know, because what part was really interesting for me that you said, I mean, of all the things, and I know you well, but obviously there's, different topics of mastery, but I think discernment is a really important one, right? Like there's so many things I see. It's like, oh, help me connect to the dragons, like we both have been saying, we're working with dragons quite a bit. But how do you know that that's dragon energy coming through? So we can trust our knowing, but how do we know? So that's always something that I've questioned. And sometimes it's been doubt, and sometimes it's actually just the process of learning your own discernment. So I think that topic of discernment and, even knowing, how spirit and us work together and whether there are agendas, like this is super important. How do you even trust who's in front of you and they say that they can channel the dragons and, mermaids and whoever's, right? So it's really important, I think, discernment in this energetic world and learning how to read energy.
Yes. And you know what, even go further, that it's just about discernment about what is in alignment with you too.
Yeah.
It's this constant process of know thyself.
Yes.
So the more you know yourself, then
100%.
everything else is so much easier in terms of making decisions and, who am I going to work with and all that sort of thing. That's a constant journey too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the only thing. Okay. Let me assure everyone, you only need to work on yourself. Don't worry about anyone else. If you work on yourself, it'll solve everything else. Look at what you shared about, your son. You just work on your own subconscious beliefs, things will change, right? Like I've shared with you recently as well. I did this healing and then this thing happened in my family. Like, do you think it's related? And even though I knew the answer already, it's like 100%. You're changing something in your life. And the thing is, and this is something I share in my Qigong teachings, the more you are able to also hold more light, aka hold more energy as well in your field, your ability to influence, your ripple effect is going to be tenfold, a millionfold, whatever. So be conscious of your thoughts, be conscious of what you are putting out there, because your ripple effect could be huge. If you have a lot of eyeballs looking at you, if you have a position of power, right? So power is not something to be, thrown around lightly. So I will share all of the links of how we can reach Diana for all of her beautiful offerings. And also I will share as well the program that I'm talking about that Diana has helped me to clear some energy around. And really it comes to being able to also work with different guides, to work with exploring archetypal energies, to know thyself, and to ultimately help pinpoint some of these patterns as well that are in your way that can allow you to liberate yourself into more full expression in whatever you do. And that might be in your business, in your relationship, in your career, and all things. And so before we sign off, is there anything else that's coming to you, Diana, that you want to share with the audience? Any messages, whether from your guides or from yourself in a human way? Because, we have the human that's communicating and being the channel, and we have our guides as well. So anything you want to share with the audience before we sign off?
The one thing that had been popping in my mind during this entire call was human design. And I would say if you're not too sure about when you're in alignment, go and get yourself a free chart of human design, and it'll show you the emotions you might be experiencing when you're out of alignment.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, when I did my chart, the emotion was anger.
Yeah.
I'm in alignment when I'm at peace, which is 100% true for me.
Yeah.
So for those who, you know, still aren't too sure about this sort of stuff, I would recommend as a free tool, just go and get your human design chart done for free. There's all these online ones, and just have a look at that line where it talks about alignment and see whether that actually resonates.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. I have used a human design and then got into the rabbit hole of human design and gene keys. And I found them to be very fascinating maps to explore ourselves. And I say maps because, hey, there are many, many maps, and you may resonate with some. Like, you know, you might like astrology, you might like, what is it, Enneagram, you might like numerology, you know, there's all the things. But I did really, really like human design and gene keys because it incorporates so many things, like different systems already. So it's a great, succinct summary. And I think human design is the one that also looks at your energetics. So I don't know if you've used this, Diana. We'll have to have a side chat about it. But there's actually why I preferred human design to gene keys is because it actually looks at the energetics of how we respond to things. And that helped me to just know some clients and a bit of their pattern beforehand. So we'll have a side chat.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
that explains so much about me and my son and my husband. I was
exactly. Yeah, but all tools. So we can use any map. So we can use a map of, again, our guides. Like I say, that heart song is about working with these archetypes and spirit allies, but it's just a map, right? Through this journey of working with these 7 guides, we get to learn a little bit more. But I could have picked, you know, any other 7 guides or anything. It's just tools to help us, to help guide us along our way, because there's 1,000,001 ways to get to know thyself and to activate and come into our potential. And so, and I'm sorry to tell you, but you're probably gonna have to do more than one course, and this is going to be a lifelong thing. But it can be fun. How much fun are you having, Diana? Like, is it not fun? Like, fun. It's so like, oh, wow, you're taking me for a spin, but it's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, well, where are we going next?
Yes, exactly. All right, beautiful sister. Thank you so much for all your enlightenment, all your wisdom sharing, and all that you do in your service work. I will be sharing all of Diana's links and all the places that you're seeing this video. And I hope to see you either in one of her things and my things and our things. And may you be the most powerful and authentic and aligned being living in the flow and grace of life. Aho.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Kat.